Good evening. Welcome to this workshop of the Hopkins School Board. We have a regular meeting of the Hopkins School Board directly following this workshop. That will begin at 7 p.m. and you can join us here on the YouTube live stream for that meeting. We have a really exciting night tonight. We are welcoming 3 new school board members to this body and a re-elected school board member who will be rejoining us. And so we thought it would be a good idea at the workshop to kind of ground us in some of the policies that guide our board work. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Mary Peary-Reed and we'll welcome Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot to the table.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland, and we'll wait for Dr. Lightfoot to approach the table. He has prepared a slide deck, and I have shared that with you, so feel free to go into your inbox and locate that slide deck. Some of the font was just a little bit smaller, so we want you to be able to see the text. And thank you, Dr. Lightfoot, for preparing this information. Much of this content comes from the 200 policy suite, and we just want to make sure all of our board members are armed with the information that you need to be successful in your role within state statute and all of the regulations, as well as Hopkins board policy. So thank you again, Nick, and we'll begin, and we'll just, this can be very casual. It is a workshop, so Nick will present, and I think there's, it's perfectly appropriate for folks to ask questions at any time during the dialogue. Hi, Nick.
Greetings. Good to be with everyone. Good to see new faces. Good to see individuals that have been here before. I tried to put together something that might be a refresh and maybe new information. It's a lot of the boring copying stuff that kind of is printed, but as it's lived, it takes on its own life and sets of experiences. So hopefully through the dialogue or questions that may come forward with it, it can hopefully provide a little bit of information and then maybe some exchange of information or dialogue as would be appropriate for the board. So just in some general components, some will have immediate applicability, especially as we think about this evening's board meeting and a couple of the structures that are there. But as we get into some of the sets of information, some of the real critical pieces, we try to just make sure for the full board's awareness that just some general statements and considerations as we think about those board policies and general practices within the public environment that we do our work. So the first one in the first bullet point, just to kind of refresh for all of us, is beginning with the thought that all data that you generate as a board member while performing your responsibility are publicly available at some point in time. It's just that good level of consideration that as we do the work that we do, information that gets generated through whether it be correspondence or formal documents or signatures or meetings that are broadcast throughout all of this, it's the public nature of what we do, and it's the transparency of what we do through our community. And in part, a lot of the 200 policies are guidance in that set about how we do that work. So it's really kind of just that general approach as we think about that information being publicly available. Second bullet point, begin with the approach that data on individuals in our system is treated first as private data, unless it is specifically identified as public data. And there are 2 specific policies, Policy 406, Policy 515, and I should just kind of take a step back and just remind everyone that all of our policies, all of those updated, are right on the web page. If you go to the district section, there are policies there. Click on the policies and all of our policies are publicly available. These are 2 that are specific to the data on individuals, specifically as employees. The Minnesota Government Data Practices Act does govern how we have specific information available related to employees. Policy 515 is information that is specific to our data that we keep as an organization, and the data then is responsible for the organization. The, if you will, caretaking of that data through the policy lens is handled by the responsible authority for that data, which sits in the assistant superintendent position. So that's just kind of one of those aspects of the work that we do, and the information that we generate is important for us to be mindful of how we use that. And if there are ever any questions at any time about that data and whether it's public or whether it's private, there are resources that we use to go to if the information isn't contained in-house. Obviously, we can go to outside counsel as well, and if necessary, the Department of Administration in the governmental structure is responsible in Minnesota under the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act for being the agency at the state level, which looks at data protection, data privacy, as well as what we'll talk about a little bit later, the open meeting law. So that's bullet point 2. The third one is just general information that it's always important for us to consider in everything that we do. Write, email, text, speak in your official role as if the judge is watching you write, speak, type, and generate content related to your board role. It's specific information there, again, back to the first bullet point, that everything that we generally do and generate is publicly available at some point in time. So I try to give that just as a general context about the way that information is structured and the work that we do. Obviously, we have some additional information here to get to a little bit more with the points in particular, but are there any points that people would want to reinforce or other points in the beginning here before we go a little bit further? All right. So then let's talk a little bit about an open meeting law and what is a meeting. This actually comes from a case in Moberg, which really defined what a meeting is, and meetings that are subject to the requirements of the open meeting law are those gatherings of a quorum being, in this case, more than 3, at the governing body at which members discuss, decide, or receive information as a group on issues relating to the official business of that governing body. So that's the general thing that we look at when there is a meeting, and then when that meeting can happen, or there are exceptions. For example, chance social gatherings. Even if a quorum is present, social gatherings are not a meeting for those purposes. And really the key defining factor, it's actually in bullet 3 there as well, but the school board does not discuss, decide, or receive information as a group relating to official business. That's one of the key defining factors in the exception. The other exception in number 2 is general training programs that you would all attend. So for example, if you were to attend the Minnesota School Board Association workshop, certainly to be on the safe side, we could post it as a meeting, but the reality is, if it is truly a training, and that training is attended toward general municipal matters rather than specific problems being attended to, it's not a meeting. The third one, a little bit more general, in the structure of improving trust, relationships, and communication, the Commissioner of the Department of Administration, again, if there were to be any questions about if there were a meeting or not a meeting, this is the agency at the state government that would make the opinion and the determination, subject to Attorney General review. That it would be, in this case, a school board may meet privately in sessions that are designed to improve trust, relationships, communications, and collaborative problem solving, as long as the board doesn't discuss, decide, or receive information as a group relating to official business. So those are some of the exceptions, just in general to meetings that you will have as you continue to do your work together. Are there other points of clarification, anything else that might be helpful related to the opening pieces of what actually is a meeting?
I think as a board, we've traditionally erred on the side of caution, especially around Section 3. Our board workshops would fall into that category, or our board retreats, would fall into that category. And we've typically posted those as a workshop so that the community knows that we're meeting and we're transparent about that. We've had very few people attend our retreats, but that way, if some sort of issue that may be coming before the board comes up at the retreat, then we're covered in terms of that open meeting law. So that third category seems like it could be a little bit fraught there. If board members, if we do not post that, and if board members are not entirely mindful of the content that's being discussed in terms of that trust building, relationship building, communications, and all of that. So just a little context there.
Other questions, anything on that? Meetings include just a couple things and a couple of key points here that can get to be a little bit nuanced, but also important for you to consider. Telephone conference calls, if there's a majority of board members participating in a conference call, virtual calls included. If we were to have that, we certainly would need to post it as a meeting so that the community would know when it's happening. There are certain requirements around telephone conference calls that came from the pandemic that we still have to be mindful of if we are to be mindful of ways in which this interfaces with actual in-person meetings as well. Those are nuanced, and if we need to get into any of those, we can certainly review those. So for example, if a board member is in a different location but wishes to attend, we've set those up before. We have structural ways in which that can happen to include individuals. That needs to be considered as part of open meeting law. The other one for boards that's another important aspect, especially in this world of texting and within emails, are what serial meetings are. Serial meetings happen and serial communication happens if there has been continued communication.
Hello there, I'm Siri. What can I do for you?
You can help me explain open meeting law. Thank you, Siri. Serial meetings. Oh, did that trigger it when I said cereal and it thought it said Siri?
Like, what have I done?
That's kind of wild. Who knew? Open meeting law, including Apple. Serial meetings. So as far as the serial meetings, that really is the communication aspect when there are additional communications happening between board members through communication channels. Often where we see these serial meetings tend to pop up, even unexpectedly, with the best of intentions, are email and text message exchanges. If they are regarding information that has to deal with school board members and your activity as a school board member, those reply all buttons can get to be a little bit difficult because then suddenly 2 or 3 reply alls constitutes that serial meeting because there has been an exchange of information between you all in your professional capacity. So I want to make sure that we at least kind of be mindful of that. That back and forth exchange, that tip that's down there. We want to make sure that we are mindful of that no forwarding, no copying rule. We don't want to try to verify or try to veer into that set of conditions where we're having to look at that set of exchanges. So it's just another one. I think we do a great job of trying to remind ourselves of that. There are ways of information can come from one source to everybody, and we can use that kind of distribution. It's just when the responses start to come back and forth with that. I don't know, Rhoda and Jen, anything else that are important to highlight as the two of you work with that communication structure as well?
I tried to preface a little bit in a few emails that you've received, but I can't think of anything else.
Often I'll just include a reminder. Please don't reply all to this. If you have a question, reply to me or Rhoda or both of us individually. And similarly with text. So oftentimes the way we would use email or text wouldn't be to discuss a specific item that's coming before the board. It would be to discuss some sort of logistical matter, like, oh, we've decided to change the meeting time from 5:30 to 5. Does that work for you? That type of thing. So it's nothing we would be voting on as a board. It would be more those logistics. And then oftentimes, Rhoda will use email to provide more context for board members about a specific issue. And those types of emails could be information about things that are coming before the board, or they could just be, we wanted to give you a heads up about this thing that happened at this particular site today. So regardless, the upshot is don't reply all, reply to individually to the chair or to the superintendent, or both.
And at the same time, I think we want you to feel like there's a space to ask questions, right? So in that kind of situation that Jen just mentioned, I might send a text as a heads up because I want you to see something in your email right away, which wouldn't preclude you from calling me or calling Jen just to say, wait a second, can you share more? And then it would be on us to figure out a way to provide that follow-up information or more lower level of detail in an email to everyone. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brooke.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. So as far as like the open meeting law, so for example, like me, Kai, Shannon, and Z couldn't go to like a coffee shop and have like a cup of coffee, like the four of us, because that'd be considered a quorum, right?
Right, yes, so 4 school board members would be a quorum,
Okay.
yes. So under that social gathering, like technically you could if you didn't discuss anything related to board matters, but there's also a perception piece. So oftentimes when open meeting law has become an issue in communities, it's when community members see a group of elected officials together, at a coffee shop, and then might think, oh, are they discussing official business, right? So there's this perception piece too, which is something that we try to be mindful of.
I just wanted to add quickly, one of the things that can make the reply all thing difficult is I think our email is set up, reply all is the default. So I think there's a way to get that setting changed, and that might be a good thing to do going forward. Just a little tip. Talk to a tech guy, tech person.
We have some of those around.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some tech people.
All right, so any other questions in general?
A question about texting. Should we refrain from using our personal phones from communicating anything official? Like, if I wanted to ask, a question about something, is that okay? Do you kind of dissuade that?
Excellent question. Not a lot of clear guidance. Obviously, if you have district-issued devices, it is always best to use a district-issued device. I mean, certainly through the iPads, the computers, obviously an email is better. Obviously, sometimes through that texting, yes, it becomes a necessary communication point in some respects because that's the best way you can reach people. The electronic communication has emerged over time such that many times when looking at that review, it's treated as correspondence, almost as if it is an in-person conversation. It's emerged more that way. Previously, 5-10 years ago, it was not in that arena within the courts as much as courts are treating it now. However, it always is best to keep in mind, back to that first bullet point, everything that you do within that text is publicly available, even if it's on your personal device. So sometimes people think if I'm using my personal device, then it's not. No, if it's done in the official capacity of the role that you're serving, if necessary, that could be retrieved if it were requested to be retrieved at some point.
So
Does that help?
There is a world where it could be discoverable. And
Yes.
so if you were to, communicate explicitly about something, not saying that I have or plan to, but if I do, that's fair game, right? And so we should keep it separate.
Yeah, and it's important because even the email exchanges that come between you and community members, Minnesota's a one-party state. So whether in that communication, one person can turn it public. I mean, even if it's that between you and a community member, if that community member wants to put that information out, they can. I mean, so certainly from that one-party piece, they can make that public. It's just, I mean, it's one of those pieces where you think about that aspect of the work that you do, and you think about how that communication is happening. It's just another piece to keep in mind as you think about that level of engagement that you have and how you think about the information in general that you're generating as a board member. Does that help?
Yep, thank you.
Super quickly, in Outlook, under settings, and then mail, and then compose and reply, you can select reply or reply all. So you can set those preferences as an individual, and thanks, Mr. Wetter, for the heads up on that. I think that's why a lot of staff do reply all to Hopkins all messages, is because this is the reply all is their default and they don't know it. I didn't know it. Thank you.
The more you know.
Exactly. Thank you. These are great questions. I hope it's kind of moving along in an informative way, and if there's something you're wondering or that we don't hit in this, there's always the opportunity to come back to anything that would be helpful for you. Open meeting law does also apply to certain other work that the board does as a committee, subcommittee, board, departments of the board, commissions that may happen from the board. As these might come up in different works or different work settings, certainly we'd be mindful of these. With the committees of the board, certainly that you think about, you don't have quorums as part of those committees. Those could be publicly attended if they were requested to be. But just in general, know that the open meeting law could apply to some of these depending on how they get set up along the way. It's just more of kind of a mindful seed plant than anything else.
So, for example, if 3 board members are serving on the monitoring committee and we all decide to go out for coffee and talk about what a policy is going to look like, and that is not part of an official monitoring committee meeting, that could be considered an open meeting law violation.
Yep. Yeah.
But it's less than 3, though.
Because the 3 of us comprise that committee.
Oh.
When the quorum, quote unquote, comes up, it's the membership of that committee.
So in that case, a quorum would be 2, right? So, yeah, so it gets a little tricky there.
Keep it to yourself.
So it's
Yeah.
like we could never talk about anything. No, that's not
But
true.
it's a great segue into the remedies. Okay, so we make a mistake, because you know what people do, we're human. Along that line, personal liability, the piece that is important in any personal liability, and a lot of this is copied from statute, just in case you're curious, but the piece that is most important in all of this is that the open meeting law really, it really kind of functions around intentional violations. So some things happen just in inadvertent practice. People aren't intending to. Any of the remedies are more along those lines where people are intentionally looking to work their way around the open meeting law. So I just give that to you as, yep, there are a whole bunch of technicalities of if you were really looking to violate this and you did it, you could be liable for an amount up to $300 per occurrence that the public body couldn't pay for you. Yes, in some cases, things can be brought. In some cases, there can be awards of costs or distribution, reasonable attorney fees that go along those lines. But these are for cases that are specific to where there have been real clear directions of, don't do this again, this will be in violation of the open meeting law. Please don't do this again, this would be in violation of the open meeting law. This is the 3rd time, and next time you will have penalties. So I just put that in front of you as it's really a good ethical, mindful practice that this is important for us to do to maintain the spirit of this, and know that, yes, there are remedies, but those really focus on the intentionality of the act in and of itself. Questions on that? All right. Then, yes, you can close meetings. those meetings, and in fact, you'll see on this evening's agenda, we'll talk a little bit about as well. There can be portions of a meeting that are closed, and there are specific components that are required if the following types of data are to be discussed. And these are really important because they protect individuals, and it's really around that protection of individuals that is really at the central focus of why we would be closing a meeting in these first sets of consideration. So if there is data that would be regarding an alleged victim of acts that are identified here in that statute, then yes, we can close it. If there are active investigations that are going on, yes, we would close it, and we would have those individuals that are there. The interesting thing about an active investigation on data on an individual is that the board may decide to say, hey, we want to close this, but the subject of that, if it is a subject and we notify the subject of this case, the subject could say, no, I really want this to be open, and then it would be open. So there are different kinds of nuanced elements for each of these that we go through. Obviously, information on medical records. If there are preliminary consideration of allegations or charges, those can be, there again, open at that last sentence there on the slide, at the request of the individual who is the subject of the meeting. I mean, those are just some kind of key reminders about reasons why we can close a meeting. What meetings may be closed. There also are possibilities when we look at the attorney-client privilege, which is partly related to the one that we have this evening. You can determine also asking price for real estate. We have on occasion done that related to any of the sale or purchase of property by you as a board or any other kinds of property considerations. Appraisal data, counteroffers for real estate, that's another element that we have experienced. 3 things to close a meeting. Making a statement on the record. So in this evening's, you'll see, yep, we've prepared the language in the session on the descriptor on the closed session. Really what it needs to be is, yep, the chair makes a statement on the record that the proposed action is to have an executive closed meeting session. It needs to give the specific statutory section that requires the meeting to be closed. And then there just needs to be that brief description, which is talking about why that meeting is being closed. It's not going to communicate any particular information that would be disclosing data that is not public. It just talks about the generality of why the meeting is being closed. The last component about closing a meeting, which you're aware of and may be familiar with for those who have done this before, is when we have labor relations. Labor relations or negotiations, part of the strategy of that and the discussion of that is part of the closed session that we have when we consider what that strategy might look like. Particularly for this board, it has been around those labor strategies associated with the Hopkins education teacher negotiations that are ongoing. So you will see those requirements that are there when we close this for labor relations. As an example, when we go through that, the chair will say the time that it is closed. There will be a written record. We need to record it. And then the recording has to be preserved for 2 years after the contract is signed and then is made available to the public after all labor contracts are signed by the governing body for the current budget period. So that can be accessed later. So it's always just a reminder that even in those closed sessions, it's important to consider in those closed sessions that that information at some point could become public as well. Questions on that in general? All right. So let's talk a little bit about data privacy and the official responsibility to protect private information. I talked a little bit about open agenda and monitoring what information is here. Even in the open agendas, you'll hear the chair mention in the speech that, yep, If it is information that might be related to data privacy, that the chair would need to monitor that. As well, policy 515, if we do get data requests, as you as boards sometimes will, people will request information, it's really important that we get that information back to the superintendent, back to the chair, so that we can engage the responsible authority to make sure that we are then following through on our obligations to get data requests out according to the terms of the statute that govern the Data Practices Act in Minnesota, as we are a state agency, and then any federal requirements we would have as well. There again, be mindful, check on the public nature of information prior to disclosing it. Always assume information on individuals. Even on a community member saying, hey, I heard something happened about this kiddo at this building. Did the board get any information on that? Wonderful to direct it to the superintendent who can help you with that question. Those kinds of things. Because otherwise, if you have information and you've disclosed it, that can be a data disclosure piece that we need to be mindful of. If there is a disclosure, even inadvertent, you need to make certain that you do report that. It's just an obligation that we have as an organization, because we are, as responsible authorities in the organization, responsible for reporting potential data breaches. So, for example, if we have any kind of breach of information within our system that may be electronic, or if there are other breaches of information that should have been kept private but were not, we have a responsibility to notify individuals that were the subject of that action, so that we can make sure that that aspect of our responsibility is taken care of as well. Questions on that? All right, PALRA, Labor Relations Act. This is a Public Employee Labor Relations Act. As a board, you have labor unions as part of this school district. Labor unions are certified through the Bureau of Mediation Services. It is the organization under the state system that we have that is responsible for the governing of that information, and that is subject to some specific conditions around Minnesota Statute 179. As part of that, we are required to meet and negotiate with all collectively represented employee groups. Represented employee groups can be formed by individuals in job-alike roles and functions. They are then subject to specific organizing statutes, and then they identify and elect an exclusive representative. We are then, as a government agency, obligated to meet and negotiate with those exclusive representatives that then represent the collective bargaining agreement and the terms and conditions of employment for that job-alike group. In Hopkins, we have 7 organized groups, 2 handbooks. Organized groups means those groups that have officially filed and are recognized by the Bureau of Mediation Services. Our handbooks govern different sections like activities and athletics. Interesting evolution there. If you want to know how that evolved over time, I can certainly give you a little bit of that history, but not this evening. There are also individual contracts that we have that are not governed by PALRA, meaning we do have individual contracts with individuals. And those are, for example, you don't have a bargaining group of one. You might have one position. So, for example, as a board, part of the work that you do as a board is you work with the contract for the superintendent. And the superintendent contract comes through the board because it isn't a collectively bargained agreement. It's the agreement that you have with that individual. We do have other individual contracts in the district, specifically in technology, in other spaces that we have for individualized services where we really don't have a collective group that meets the term of that job-alike responsibility. Under PALRA, our HEA group, our teachers, are governed by a maximum of a 2-year length CBA, collective bargaining agreement. It means that by law, every 2 years, we are required to meet and negotiate with our teachers. We are in process with that negotiation this year. Our contract did expire on June 30th of 2023. So we are working on the terms of the 23-24 and 24-25 school year. Other groups, for example, are clerical, custodial, or paraprofessional, as examples, can go longer, but none have gone over 3 years. Most likely, it tends to mirror the 2-year funding work that happens at the legislative level. That's why groups like to do that, is because their budgeting work is really determined by the funding that comes from the state, and then that on a 2-year cycle is really why groups try to tend to that 2 years, because boards know that level of funding and are much more likely to consider that and then consider any financial impact as a result of that information. In Hopkins, all of our financial proposals are costed through our business service department, and the terms and conditions, as well as those fiscal parameters, are all placed on the consent agenda for board approval prior to voting on the agreement. So we put all of those changes there, we put all the information together. In Hopkins, we also work toward interest-based bargaining as a general approach, meaning that what are the interests that we're trying to solve for, rather than the mutual exchange of proposal, 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 proposal. We really try to look at what are we trying to solve for, how are we looking to use the resource in the best way that we can, being mindful of the information that is around us at the time. We do meet, as I mentioned before, in closed executive session on the HEA contract. And then, if necessary, we would use the HR committee for other CBA agreements on an as-needed basis. And if there were things that were developing or coming together, we'd start with that group. And then, if need be, we could meet with the full board as well. So that's the aspect of PELRA. Questions on that?
Is it normal to have teachers not working under contract, and so there's a gap, right? Is that typical? Is that abnormal?
Yeah, excellent question. I would say it has become more the norm. There used to be state statute that penalized districts for not settling agreements by, I think it was January of the year in which after which the year that the contract expired. So they kind of gave like a 6-month window, and that was rescinded. So now we have seen more districts really not worry about when the contract is settled because there aren't fiscal penalties, and it's more about meeting the term of what that might look like. I would say, given the complexities of this last legislative session, the majority right now are still unsettled. There aren't a majority of those districts right now that have.
And does that increase risk of, I don't know, labor activity, or is there more risk if there's no contract or anything like that?
Potentially. We have what's called the preservation language in the contract, which holds the present contract at its face until a new one is agreed to. So right now, the same terms that were in place in 2023 are still in place now as we hit the 23-24 school year. And we know, and we do work through that retroactive aspect of any contract settlement. So the labor tenor is that we know upon agreement that, yes, all of that will be shared, all of that will be there. Typically, what I would say, at least here in Hopkins, is we've worked with the teachers, is that we have seen around that December timeline horizon as a typical time that we have settled those contracts. So right now, we're pretty well on pace with where we've been before. And like I said, with the complexities of what handed districts like, okay, wow, we have to figure all this out, and some very new requirements that were put in front of districts, it has taken more time because there are more things that have to be built into the contract that weren't even on the table before.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just for additional context, this is not unique to E12. It's the case in higher ed, too. I've worked under technically expired contracts my entire career in higher ed at some point or another, meaning each time a contract cycle comes up. So it's normal.
And some groups like to get it done before. Other groups like to wait. I mean, and it really comes at the request of the collective bargaining agreement exclusive reps. They'll say, look, we're looking to open negotiations. They can open it a month prior to the expiration and start at any point in time with letting us know. And then we continue to work with them throughout the course of our process. So we tried to hit the highlights of some of these. I know it's a lot of information, and it's kind of information now, but as you work through and process some of these experiences, as you go through that experience of the board roles in which you serve and the community that you serve, there's always a wealth of information that we can tap into locally, and if we don't have those answers or there are new situations, we're connected well with individuals who can get us that set of information so that you feel you can do the work you need to do for the community.
Thanks. Can I ask just one question? It seems like a lot of what we heard is required by a state statute. Is that fair to say? Okay. And so it seems like some of the policies, for example, 204, it says, you know, the provisions of this policy are required by statute. For some of the others, I've seen a heading that says it reflects statute. So what's the difference between being required by statute or reflecting statute?
It's a great question. MSBA, and here's a little bit, so if this is too much, pull me back. I'm hoping I can answer your question. The model policies that we get and we work off of are generated first through Minnesota School Board Association. And they have their legal and policy analysts that will go after all of the statutes and the statutory changes, and they put together all of those series of model policies. Those model policies are almost all based either in federal statute or state statute. There are specific elements in some state statutes which may leave the term may, which is different than the term must. So in a must setting, it's required. In a may setting, it may be best practice. And those are the types of things that the monitoring committee will go through and look toward when we have some of those model policies. And when we look at those, there are specific elements that even MSBA will just copy the language of the statute and say, this is required. There are other elements where school districts have allowable considerations and have flexibility. So it might reflect some of that information, but some of that decision needs to happen at a local level at the board table. And then some of that is then built into the policy that you all put together collectively to display to the community. So I think it's probably the easiest way that I can ease into that is some information is, yep, it must happen this way. Others is, yeah, you need to have this conceptual component there and you need to reflect this, but you have choice and control over what shape that's going to take.
Yeah, I think that confirms how I'm interpreting it too, so I appreciate it.
So for me, though, is it right to say that if I read reflect, that's more of a may, and if it's not reflect, it's a must? Is that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm trying to, I'll work on giving you some specific examples. I'm just not pulling up a may and a must right now, but we certainly can. I mean, there are plenty of those.
And also, those can change over time as well. So you might have a policy that at one time had to be, the language had to be specifically that way. And then, like I'm thinking of, I think it was Title IX that got changed federally, so we had to change our policy, and now it's back. So the language can shift.
And
Yeah.
Can I just clarify this? Who's saying must versus may? MSBA or the legislature?
Statute.
The statute is
Exactly.
saying must or may.
Yep.
And then MSBA interprets that, makes a model policy, and then it comes to the school board. Okay.
It's a plug for the monitoring committee.
Which
Because
is
the monitoring committee does go through all of those, and all of our policies are reviewed on a 3-year cycle basis. So we try to get in and look at all of those. And then any changes, like Director Andreessen identified, go directly through any language changes. I mean, the last omnibus bill, because we were just looking at it earlier today, because we continually refer to it, it's over 300 pages of material. So some of that is built in over time, and especially as we still take a look at some of those policies which need to be identified and worked through as part of our continuing implementation as well, about may and must. So you may, so here's an example, attendance. We're working on attendance. The board must have an attendance policy. But the board may identify certain parts that the board may give the community as to what counts as excused or unexcused. So you must have an attendance policy, but you may look at excusing family trips. Some boards may not. That's just kind of a quick example that I can kind of give you as kind of a may and a must.
two small words with big impact in terms of our policymaking. Well, thank you. So we've gone through the first 2 agenda items on the workshop agenda now. Any additional questions for Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot while we have him at the table? You know where to find him if you do. And he provided us with a great transition to our next agenda item, which is our committee selection. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick.
So board members and community members watching, if you click on the link in the workshop agenda, it will take you to a Hopkins School Board Officers and Committee Assignments grid. And you can see some historical information there from the last 2 years, who has served in each role and on each committee. And so we're going to talk through board member interest in all of these roles and committees. It makes the most sense to start with officer positions because those positions determine committee participation in some cases. Let's start with chair. Are there board members who are interested in serving as chair?
I will.
Shannon. Any other board members interested in serving as chair? So we will formally elect our officers during the meeting, and we need someone to nominate each officer or each candidate for an officer position. We need to formally elect them even if there's just one candidate. So I would be happy to nominate Shannon.
Thank you.
Who's interested in serving as vice chair?
I will throw in my hat.
Excellent. Anyone else interested in vice chair?
Is it appropriate to ask a question?
Absolutely.
Do the officer positions hold more hours for the school board? Like, so I know it's probably typically around like maybe 10 or 15 hours a month, like already. But like, is there outside hours that they require that's outside of this?
Yeah, so quite a bit of organizational work is required in the chair position. The vice chair chairs the monitoring committee, so works closely with Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot in preparing for those meetings. So it's determined by the committees that each of these roles serve on too. But I would say, by and large, there's a greater time commitment for officers. And it also depends on what's coming before the board and the dynamics of board work that year. So how's that for a really winding answer? Who would like to nominate Jason for vice chair?
I would like to.
Great. Who is interested in serving as treasurer?
Chair Westmoreland.
Yes.
I am interested.
Great. Anyone else interested in serving as treasurer? Who would like to nominate Rachel?
I would.
Now for the big one. Who is interested in serving as clerk? And our current clerk Ross can tell you how exciting the role is. Clerk Ross, what are some of your duties?
Putting your John Hancock on a lot of important details. That sounds like from what Dr. Lightfoot said is, public record. So, and then you get to do a roll call as well. The roll call is exciting to be able to get those votes in from your school board colleagues.
You really sold it there.
And you also review the minutes. So you're always up on what happened last time.
Are there particular committees assigned to the clerk?
No. Clerk was the first officer role I served in, so I would be happy to serve as clerk unless somebody else is interested.
I think that this is a doable position, right, by someone who is just coming onto the board if they so choose, and helps a little bit to learn about the board processes, and
Definitely.
would definitely be with it in anyone's grasp here.
And if somebody else is interested, I would happily be your clerk mentor.
I'll do it.
Wonderful. And who'd like to nominate Kai?
I'll do that.
Great. Okay, we have our officers, so we'll formally elect officers at the meeting. Typically, the practice is, of this board, has been that the current officers stay in their role till the end of this meeting, just because it can get kind of confusing to switch it up in the middle. So I think the position that is impacted the most by this would be chair, so I just want to check with future Chair Andreessen that would be okay with you if I finished out the agenda for this meeting.
It would be preferred.
It would be preferred, okay. Happy to do that. And then the next person who would be impacted would be, wait, do we need a roll call vote to go into closed session? No, okay. Okay, so,
But don't we have to read a resolution? How did it get set up? That's the only,
will you check the agenda?
meeting. It's a resolution calling executive session.
Okay, so for resolutions, we technically need a roll call vote?
No,
Yes.
you don't need a roll call vote on that. You just need to
Okay.
read the resolution statement into the record about that, and then the full board would vote either to go into closed session or not. It's not a roll.
Okay, so we can do a voice vote. I think what happened is we did tons of roll call votes during COVID because that was what was required with and so I just got into like this roll call vote mode, and I like to make clear Peterson do it too. It was like what kept meetings fun for me. So I I think this will be good, having a new clerk in the role. We can review where roll call votes are actually necessary, because it's just, typically more time effective to do a voice vote, a simple yay or nay vote with the board. So, okay, great. So future Clerk Thompson, we will not be calling you into service at this meeting, but at a future meeting, there might be a roll call vote, and we can go over that process.
Votes for officers aren't roll call?
No, especially because we only have one candidate for each. Do you have a different understanding?
I don't know, I thought I had seen it done before with roll calls, but I mean, I could be wrong.
I can check to see if Robert's Rules requires that. I don't think there would be any legal requirement for it. So,
No.
yeah. So I can check to see if Robert's Rules requires a roll call.
I don't think our board has done that in the past. Did you see one of our board meetings
No,
done that way?
no, but I didn't watch your one with the
Yeah,
last officer elections.
Yeah, I don't have a memory that we've ever done it, so it would then not be our board precedence to do so.
Are you all comfortable with a voice vote for the officers?
Okay with it.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to committees, and we can talk about kind of where the chair, vice chair, and treasurer fit into this list. Association of Metropolitan School Districts. Jason, did you attend some of those meetings last year?
I did all virtual.
All virtual, okay. And frequency is once a month. That's an early morning one.
Yeah, there is the opportunity if you want to drive out to, I can't think of the city next to St. Paul. Sorry.
Little Canada.
There you go. Little Canada. I mean, you have that opportunity to get there at 7 a.m., but it goes from 7 until 9, and 7 to 7:30 is more of the light breakfast. 7:30 to 9 is the actual meeting.
And Rhoda, you attend those?
I do.
Regularly as well. So we typically have one board member assigned to that and another one who serves as alternate if the primary board member cannot attend. And that's an interesting committee, because you really learn a lot about what other school districts are doing. You have a role to play in giving input on the legislative platform for AMSD. Am I kind of hitting the major points there?
Yes.
So any interest in that committee?
I attended them in person in the past with Treasurer Steve Adams, and would be willing to serve on that either as the primary or the alternate, especially if someone else has strong feelings about it.
Great. Other interest in that committee?
I could put my name back down in there.
As the alternate? Or would you want to be the primary?
I'll be the primary because I'm pretty sure Rachel's gonna have. She's
Step
gonna-
in.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely put me as the primary, please.
Rachel, are you comfortable with that?
I am. The one thing that I'm thinking about is that the LAC relies somewhat on that information. Then again,
But does
believe-
Catherine always attend AMSD?
Does.
Yeah.
But I do believe that because we are a member district of AMSD, that any of us can attend those meetings at any time. This is, I think, just specifically to make sure that there are board members who are dedicated to attending each one for the purposes, Rachel, that you're bringing up, of making sure that the LAC is aware of what's going on. So either, if you and Jason wanted to split it, or if you wanted to attend more, it's completely up to us as a board. Like if there would ever be a time when neither of you could make it, then any of us could, or you both can every time.
Yeah, I'm completely fine of being an alternate if it coincides.
Is technically whoever is the primary here is our vote? I don't think that they generally, right, like they do vote on some
Oh.
Very infrequently.
infrequently. I mean, they do though.
Yeah.
Like at one that I was at, Steve was our vote. I don't think that that drastically impacts my feelings about this. Whatever you want to do.
You could just leave it. Rachel and I will figure it out of like I'll be there virtually, so she and I can figure it out offline.
Perfect. So I think we can put both of you down. We don't really have to assign an alternate. And then just as long as we have at least one person there who can vote and represent the board. Great. Intermediate District 287. So Shannon has served on this board, and it's essentially another board assignment because you're serving on an entirely different board representing Hopkins.
And I'm in the middle of my term, so I will be there this coming year as well. So it just would need an alternate.
Because you're in the middle of your two-year term. I'm happy to serve as alternate unless somebody else is interested. Okay. Minnesota State High School League. I would call this a low-time commitment committee.
I'd be happy to do it.
Excellent. I think a lot of correspondence happens over email. I'm pretty sure the meetings are virtual, maybe once a year, twice a year. So I've got you down, Kai. Cities and Board Steering Committee. Rachel, how often did that committee meet last year?
I believe twice in the end, though I can't honestly remember if that first one got like it was going to be rescheduled due to inclement weather, and then I can't
The
remember if
goal
it
is
did.
quarterly.
Quarterly, okay.
I think twice a year has been what's happened in the last couple of years.
Okay. Interest in that committee. So meeting with our elected colleagues in the cities that comprise the Hopkins School District. Okay? And Brooke? Any other interest in that committee? This is the draft pick, right? Okay. So the next two committees have been combined into one, and so these are our community education and engagement. This is our community education and engagement committee that's comprised of board members, district staff members, and community members. So interest in serving on this committee. So we can have typically we've had two board members and one alternate.
Is that the meeting that meets at the high school, like in the cafeteria? I will do that one.
Great. Other interest?
What's the time commitment for it?
5 to 6 times a year. Director Fisher, is that accurate?
We meet twice a year officially, and then there's 2 resource fairs at the middle schools or high school.
Oh, okay.
I'll do that.
Anyone interested in serving as alternate? I'd be happy to. Okay, Citizens Financial Advisory Committee. Typically, the treasurer serves on this, so I'll put Rachel as number 1. And who else is interested in serving on this committee?
I would like to.
Great. Any other interest? Okay. Is ESAC still the name of this committee? Did we
Yeah, I
change
think
the
so.
name?
Anne, yes.
It's still the name. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Ann. Typically, we have 1 board member and 1 alternate serving on our Educational Services Advisory Committee. Kai? Okay. Any other interest in this one?
This correlates with the, how am I blanking on the name of the standardized test? Is that kind of, is there some evaluation in there?
It's more curriculum, teaching and learning with maybe a little bit of assessment.
Yeah, although this year, one of the big focuses is our student success metrics, so, which is related to standardized testing.
You could put me down.
Okay. And my understanding there is that there's some flexibility around if you both wanted to attend that meeting, that would be fine, so. Great. Special Education Advisory Committee. So 1 representative, 1 alternate.
I'll go back on that if.
Shannon, and any other interest in that committee for an alternate? Happy to be the alternate. Okay, how are we doing, team?
Great.
Okay, everybody feeling good? Okay. All right, so monitoring committee, the vice chair chairs this committee, so we'll put Jason down. Is there any other interest in this committee?
I have interest. It doesn't have a schedule listed?
So typically twice a month?
I would say bi-monthly.
By weekly,
So, yeah, that's what I meant.
generally.
Does that mean twice a month? Sorry, I don't do well with like the buys and the ties and yeah.
Twice a month.
Each fortnight. Yes. I'm interested in serving on the monitoring committee,
That would be great.
going back to my roots. Other interest? Kai, were you interested?
I mean, I'm interested. I feel like I need to tally up what I've raised my hand for, so.
Smart man. It adds up quickly. It's like me at the grocery store. I'm like, wait, what? I committed to what? Other interest in the monitoring committee?
What time of day does it meet?
So we were meeting on Thursdays, and it was 2 in the afternoon, but I'm pretty sure that the timing can be flexible, depending on what all you have going on.
In general, at the beginning of the new makeup of the committee, the chair and Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot will meet and just talk about what the frequency will look like and kind of what the committee wants to get done. And then the chair will reach out to the other members of the committee and set up times and days that work best for everyone. And since the pandemic, we've been meeting virtually, so it's not like you have to get here, get into a room, all that kind of stuff. So I found that to be a lot easier, especially if if you're working, you can have that around. Or if you have to pick up kids, you can still sometimes do it in your car.
Safety first.
So it is really, when you're available, you can, within reason, set up a time. And that's how it's been done in the past.
Okay. You can put me down on that one.
Brooke, you're in.
Yeah, for the monitoring committee? Okay, yeah.
Kai, is that okay with you?
That's fine, thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Board Audit Committee, so this is another committee that the treasurer would serve on, so I'll put Rachel down. Other interest here.
I will do it.
Okay. A third taker.
I'll have to say, I don't remember being on this committee. So if you're looking for low time commitment, this would be another one of those.
I'm happy to be the third unless there's other interest.
You can put me down as the
Jason?
third,
Okay,
please.
great. Legislative Action Coalition.
I would like to be on that again.
And so would I. I would really like to continue my work there. There are
Is
three.
it required that you go every Friday?
Required is a very strong word, so there's absolutely people who, for one reason or another, cannot attend. That being said, this is a busier committee, and there's value to being there very often, like really making most of them, because of there's just a lot of reading. There's quite a bit of discussion, and if you miss some of that, then it requires reacclimation. But of course you can, and people do miss some.
And again, that's also a time, there's always been, since I've been on the LAC, which was before I was on the school board, there was always discussion about the timing of the meetings. So if it's that time, 11:30 on a weekday, that's the issue. There's always been discussion about, are there times that are better for more people? So that could be part of the first meeting discussion, or even just a series of emails if you find that time to be not a good time to meet. But again, it is virtual, which makes it easier
Yeah,
for
almost
those of
always.
us who are working
Yeah.
and on there.
Is that an alternate position or is it like a position?
So we've typically had 2 to 3 members, so there is some flexibility there.
Okay, you could put me now.
I think, you know, the discussion that Shannon referenced around the timing, that impacts community members too, who might be wanting to serve on that committee. So, you know, here I'm speaking as somebody who's not going to be serving on this committee, but I think it would be interesting to open up that conversation to see if there's a time that works better for community members who are interested in advocacy as well, so.
Well, and we also do another meeting for our student board reps, because now that there isn't as much flexibility in their schedule during the day, we do, I think, is it monthly after school? And so we hold a special LAC meeting just for those student board reps who want to be part of the LAC.
Oh.
So,
And finally, Steve Adams is going to continue his work, though he will be a citizen member of the board. So if you want to stay in touch with Steve.
it's the way to do it.
Your
how you
weekly
do it.
Steve, dose of Steve. Great. Let's move on to visioning and strategic planning. This has not been a super active committee in the past couple of years. It was very active when we were doing our strategic visioning work. This would be a committee that would be called into service if something related to the strategic vision or the implementation of it needed some ideation. So this would be a low time commitment committee.
I can stay on it. And continue doing the nothing that I've done on it so far.
I'm in too.
So is this committee, is this committee, that's the question I was gonna ask. So for example, the report that came out about, what was it? About like the sleeping hours. It was the quantitative report. Is this committee the one who helped put that together or review it or no? No? Okay.
No. Kai, I want to make sure I heard you. Did you say you were interested? Okay, good. I put you down, but I didn't want you to be like, why did she write my name down? I'm happy to stay on this too, unless there's someone else who's interested. Okay. Student board representatives. So Rachel started working with Tanya and the student board representatives as kind of part of our succession planning. Rachel, are you interested in continuing in that role?
Yes, I think certainly for this year that will be just fine. That's going well.
And then there's space for an alternate who could work with Rachel and the student board reps, and that could be something where that person could move into the main liaison role eventually.
The schedule for that is somewhat erratic. There's nothing that's firmly required. Quite a bit of it happens by email or by touching base at the meetings themselves. If someone is interested in being an alternate, we might try to find time. They have kind of win sessions where I forget offhand if Tuesdays or Wednesdays are when this group usually meets with Principal Ballard, but we might try to go make one of those in January, but we don't do very many in-person meetings.
And as you know, our student board reps are amazing, and so this is one of, I think, the most enjoyable roles that a board member can have.
I'll do it.
All right,
I'm sitting in Tanya's chair, so I think I'm obligated to
there you go.
by the power of chair.
Yes. Human Resources Board Committee. So this committee is really called into service when there's a specific circumstance that warrants it. One way that we've recently started to use this committee is as the meet and confer committee with our union members. So Shannon and I were part of that first meet and confer in December. I have a desire to stay on this committee to provide some continuity there. And curious if others are interested.
I am interested in staying on.
Is there a third member?
You can put my name down.
Okay. And then safety and security. This would also be a low time commitment committee,
You can put me down.
and we have room for an alternate as well.
Alternate.
Okay. We did it.
We did it.
May I ask one question?
Yes.
Would you consider, or would the board consider adding an alternate to the city's / board steering committee? And having me serve as the alternate there. In the past, it has had some links to the LAC, which is sort of why I'm thinking about it.
I'm comfortable with that.
Sure.
Any opposition to that idea? Adding an alternate position? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
So then will these be up for vote in the main meeting?
That's right. So,
Oh,
so we won't do we won't discuss all of them again.
Okay.
We'll vote to approve the committee assignments as assigned on the document, essentially.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And the public can see this document right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and then, once it's formalized, our committee assignments will be added under our bios on the board website so that community members can see which committees we're serving on as well. Great. Any other conversation around committee assignments or officer assignments?
And who typically sends out the meeting requests for the committees? Would it be Natalia?
So it depends.
Depends.
If there's a district staff member who coordinates that committee, it would come directly from that district staff member. Some will come, so you may see emails from Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot's assistant, who would send out the invitations for the policy, for the monitoring committee, so it kind of depends on the committee, but we'll make sure that everyone knows who your contact person is for each committee. Wonderful. So if there's nothing more on this, then we can wrap up our workshop. We have some community members who are joining us for the big event, the oath of office, I'm sure at 7. So let's wrap this up so you can greet your fans, and then we'll plan to be back at the table about 3 minutes to 7, so we can start right at 7. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. This meeting of the Hopkins School Board is called to order at 7 p.m. I'd like to welcome all of our community members who have joined us here in the boardroom, as well as via the YouTube live stream. This is a really exciting night. And before we get into the main event, which is why many of you are here to watch our new board members, our 3 new board members and our 1 returning board member take the oath of office tonight, we are going to just go around the table and introduce ourselves, which has been our practice as a board for the past couple of years, so that you here in the room and folks joining us via the YouTube live stream know who we are and know who represents you here on this governing body. So we'll start with Director Ross.
Good evening, community members. My name is Jason Ross. I have 3 children who attend Tanglin Elementary here in the district. I have 2 5th graders, soon to be rising 6th graders, and I have 1 2nd grader, soon to be a 3rd grader. I am entering my 3rd year in my 3rd year in my first term. And I've lived in Minnetonka, but I've been in the Hopkins School District now for over the past 10 years. My kids and I love it here, as well as my wife. We moved from St. Paul, Minnesota over here to Hopkins. We liked what Hopkins represents. We liked what the direction of where the school is going. And yes, thank you for coming, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Hi, everybody. This is I'm Jiming Zhao, and I am newly elected to the school district. I've got 2 children at the Xing Xing School in Eisenhower in 3rd grade and kindergarten, and we moved from Plymouth, actually. Similar to Director Ross, we saw the promise and the kind of makeup of Hopkins, and we said to ourselves, this is where we'd like to be, and yeah, so I'm very excited to help move the district along with all our goals, and really glad to meet everybody.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see all of you tonight. My name is Shannon Andreessen, and I am starting my 2nd term on the school board, and I parent 2 amazing kids. One is a sophomore at Hopkins High School, and the other is a recent graduate of the high school who's now at the University of Minnesota. That's me.
Good evening. I'm Jen Westmoreland, she, her. I currently serve as chair of the Hopkins School Board. I'm entering into my 7th year on the board. I've served as chair for the past 4. I'm the parent of a 7th grader at West Middle School. I'm a proud graduate of Hopkins High School, and it's an honor to serve alongside these dedicated community members.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rhoda Marie Peary-Reed, Superintendent. I've been in my role for 7 years. I also have children in our district. I have a 6th grader, a girl at West Middle School, and I have a 10th grader at our high school.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am Director Rachel Hartland, and I use she, her pronouns. And I have 3 children in our school district who are in their 8th, 6th, and 4th grade years here. And my spouse and I open enrolled our oldest in Hopkins after a careful consideration of all of our metro school district options. And then we moved here shortly thereafter, after we confirmed that Hopkins is our perfect academic community and values match. And we've now lived here in district for 7 years, and I'm proud to be entering my 3rd year on the board.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brooke Roper. I am a newly elected board member to the Hopkins School District. I am originally from Northside, Minneapolis, and I've been residing in Hopkins for the last 6 years. I have 2 wonderful, amazing kids in the district, 6 CJ and 5 Brooklyn, who both go to Gatewood Elementary. And I am excited to be serving on the board and to make some great changes for the district.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kai Thompson. My wife Katie and I have lived in the district for about 7 years. We have 3 kids in the district in 3rd, 7th, and 8th grade. I was recently elected, beginning my term this evening. We have really enjoyed the Hopkins schools, but also realized that there are some real challenges facing it, and that's really what inspired me to run to join the board, to hopefully help out as much as I can here.
Wonderful, thank you. So we'll move on to our oath of office, and I have the honor of administering the oath for our 3 new board members and our returning board member. So board members who are taking the oath, I'll have you just stand right over there, right behind Kenneth, who is our notary, and he'll work with you to sign your acceptance of the oath of office after you say it with me. So what we'll do is have each person recite the oath, and then you can all go over together and work with Kenneth. As I call you up, please invite any family members, loved ones who have joined you tonight to come up and join you as you say the oath, if that feels right to you. And we have a microphone that we'll use up front. How does that sound?
Great.
All right, let's do it. So Shannon, if you want to stand here. Okay, perfect. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Shannon Andreessen,
I, Shannon Andreessen,
affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
and that I will discharge faithfully
and that I will discharge faithfully
the duties of the office of school board member
the duties of the office of school board member
of Independent School District Number 270
of Independent School District Number 270
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm going to have my wife, Katie, join me.
Wonderful. And I'm going to do a better job of moving the microphone back and forth. Hi, Katie. I, Kai Thompson,
I, Kai Thompson,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of school board member
the duties of the office of school board member
of Independent School District 270
of Independent School District 270
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Director Roper. Do you want to hold the book for your mom? Okay, perfect. Perfect. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Brooke Ann Roper,
I, Brooke Ann Roper,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state,
and of the state,
and that I will discharge faithfully
and that I will discharge faithfully
the duties of the office of school board member
the duty of the office of school board member
of Independent School District 270
of Independent School District 270
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations. Director Zhao. I, Jiming Zhao,
I, Jiming Zhao,
affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
and that I will discharge faithfully
and I will discharge faithfully
the duties of the office of school board member
the duties of the office of school board member
of Independent School District 270
of Independent School District 270
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations to our new school board members and our returning school board member, and to our entire community, because you have some wonderful, dedicated people representing you on the Hopkins School Board, and I'm really thrilled to have the opportunity to work alongside them. So we'll give our new school board members a moment to finish signing their acceptance, and then we'll move into our open agenda period. Okay, thank you. We can now move into our next agenda item, which is open agenda. This is one of 2 times during our board meetings when we hear public comment from our community members. We, as a board, believe that hearing from our community is crucial for implementing our strategic vision 2031. And community members have 2 options for giving public comment. You can call and leave a voicemail before the board meeting begins and have that voicemail played publicly during the board meeting, or you can attend in person, fill out a public comment card, and hand it to the chair before the meeting begins. I mentioned that this is one of 2 public comment sections. The other one comes at the end of the meeting. So this is one for items that are on the agenda. The one at the end of the meeting is for items that are not on the agenda. I did not receive any public comment cards this evening, nor did we receive any voicemails. So we will move on to our next agenda item, which is our reports. So we are so lucky to have 2 student board representatives with us tonight, one at the table, one joining us via Google Meet. And so who's going to start off tonight?
Elif, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure.
We heard you and now we can't.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay. Let me turn my camera on. It might not work. I wanted to be in person today, but I'm feeling under the weather and I didn't want to risk anyone. But my name is Elif and I am the senior board representative. I want to welcome all of the newly elected school board members. I look forward to the work that you will do to support our community, and hopefully we can meet in person at the next meeting. So also Grace, our other student board representative who's a senior, was not able to join today. She is busy right now, but she has shared with me what she wanted to say, and I've added a few things. So there's not much given that it's only been 2 days of school since winter break. Before winter break, we had a Canvas notification put out with info about what school board representatives do for potential new applicants, and that got us a lot of new students who were interested. And we held interviews before break for 9th grade, 10th grade, and virtual EDU students, and they were a great success. So we'll be following up with them soon to have more representation from the 9th grade as well as the 10th grade. In terms of sports, our girls and boys basketball teams are having great seasons, and you all should definitely take some time to go support our teams and see our Hopkins school spirit. And lastly, term 3 is beginning soon, so students are preparing for end of term 2 finals.
Thank you so much, Elif. It's good to see you, and thank you for keeping your germs away from the board. No,
of course, no problem.
We miss you and appreciate hearing from you. Any questions or comments for Elif from my board colleagues? All right.
Okay. Hi, I'm Praise. I'm a junior representative. Black Student Alliance has presented the Rarely Speaking auditions taking place this week, Wednesday, tomorrow, as a way to lead up to the main event, the annual showcase for the talents of our many students through sing, dance, rap, and more, happening on February 29th. The exploration of the medical and health fields class attended a field trip to Medtronic Physiological Research Laboratories, PRL, and received the opportunity to learn about what occurs there. They've also had recent guest speakers from the fields of dentistry, physical therapy, sports medicine, forensic medicine, and mortuary science these past couple of weeks, occurring before winter break. The Girls Taking Action Club and Boys of Hope Club have had multiple meetings these past months and have been encouraging and empowering our HHS students. Finally, to wrap up on a positive note, the HHS HOSA Club has had a successful blood drive on December 22nd, the last day before winter break. Surpassing our goal of 54 appointments, we ended up with a total of 69, thanks to all the wonderful Memorial Blood Center staff, a very large number of student volunteers, and the donors themselves. There's also another blood drive approaching this February, and we hope to get more donations from staff and students, as this is an opportunity to not only build scholarship funds for our seniors, to our Memorial Blood Center's partners, and to also save the lives of those in our community. Okay, that's all.
Thank you so much, Praise. Wow, a lot going on, a lot of exciting stuff. And it was just like the first day back at school yesterday. So we're just hitting the ground running. Great. Any questions or comments for Praise from my board colleagues?
Chair Westmoreland?
Yes.
I have a question. You mentioned you guys are doing this talent showcase. Is that open to the community, or will an invitation be issued, or would that be students only?
It's for HHS students, if that's what you're asking, yes.
I didn't, just to be clear, I didn't mean to participate.
Oh,
I meant to watch.
oh yes,
To
it is
attend.
open to everyone to come watch, yes.
Okay, thank you.
There goes your audition opportunity.
shoot.
Great. Thank you so much, Praise. Thanks,
No problem.
Thanks for being here. Good to see you. So we'll move into our superintendent's report with Dr. Mary Perry Reed.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland, and thanks, Natalia, for presenting for me. So yesterday, we welcomed back nearly 7,000 students pre-K through grade 12 and Transition Plus after 2 weeks off. And we truly hope that our staff and families had a wonderful time with family and got some much-needed rest. It's important to mention that although holidays are joyful for most, they can be challenging for some of our constituents, and our principals and school staff do a great job about remembering this. In her memo to Meadowbrook staff yesterday morning, Principal Sawatsky shared, "Please keep in mind that winter break isn't always a happy, restful time for students. Food insecurity, family tension, and grief can be stressors for our students. As we welcome them back today, let's greet our students with wide smiles and open arms. It's good to see you, and I missed you can go a long way. Thank you, Natalie, and all of our leaders for warmly welcoming our students and staff in a way that helps everyone feel seen." I'd like to offer my own personal welcome to our 4 recently sworn-in school board directors, Brooke Roper, Kai Thompson, Jiming Zhao, and incumbent Shannon Andreessen. And I personally look forward to working with all of you. I think that mainstream media has helped all of us in this country better understand how critical our school boards are to quality public education. Board directors have many important duties packed into very little pockets of time, bi-weekly school board meetings and community engagements here and there. So thank you in advance, all of you as board directors, for your vision, your policy knowledge and governance, providing guidance and feedback for me as the superintendent, reviewing and approving our annual budget, and truly serving as model leaders for our community as you advocate for all of our students, staff, and families. We are entering into our second quarter of strategic plan and goal monitoring meetings with our school leaders. Schools are grouped for these sessions, and you can see the pairings on the left. The attendees include principals and their designees, including data specialists, instructional coaches, and/or associate principals. District representation includes our Director of Innovation, Design, and Learning, our Principal on Special Assignment, who provides supervision and leadership for our principals, our Instructional Data Scientist, our Director of Special Education, and our Director of Education, Equity, and Inclusion. And during these meetings, we discuss the health of our schools, where the schools are with their data collection and goal monitoring, and the leaders' implementation strategies. And we are also hosting quarterly goal-setting meetings with district department leaders. So that'll be an exciting feature for this year. Another thing I wanted to share with you, because we are committed to a strong and positive start to the 24-25 school year, we launched our Strong School Startup series in mid-December. This is a screenshot of the very super draft spreadsheet that we built at our first meeting involving reps from all district departments. You'll see the various departments and work streams on the right, and we are going to meet monthly to have teams report out as well as identify and problem solve snags that come up along the way. We're really excited about our cross-functional team and the work that we will do together to have a strong fall start. Last Friday, Director Ross and I attended AMSD's monthly meeting, and the focus was on the work that districts need to do to develop pathways for high schoolers that allow students to not only cultivate their career-aligned interests, but also discover what they might not be interested in pursuing after high school. And the speakers referenced this report put out by Brookings in 2018. Researchers in this report studied the quality of jobs held by 29-year-olds who experienced disadvantage during adolescence. And as we think about our own pathway development at Hopkins High School, here are a couple of things from this report that should inform our thinking. Number one, having a job as a teenager predicts higher job quality in adulthood. Number two, career-based experiences in high school that have relational components, such as mentoring or helping students build a strong sense of self-concept, helps increase job quality when adolescents become adults. And third, which is really interesting because 75% of the future workforce is Gen Z, we have to understand how young people are motivated. Many of our young people are motivated more by purpose, not paycheck, which is different from how many of us are oriented to work. So some of our young people many of our young people want to identify a career they can build around a lifestyle versus a lifestyle that they would build around a career. So some really interesting things for us to think about as we engage in pathway development over the next couple of years. We will be working on our construction pathway at our high school, as well as partnering with HEF within a couple of years to develop a computer science, coding, and AI pathway. So this research will be really helpful, and of course, we're grateful to HEF for helping us fund and launch our current CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant pathway. I'd like to recognize our district's instructional data scientist, Dr. Abby Holm, who's been leading a team effort to build a platform that gives our district and school leaders access to visual data that is holistic, comprehensive, and organized to provide a more complete picture of how well our students are doing. This platform is called the Data Cloud. There are 3 levels of data: district, school, and classroom, with some data points being able to be drilled down to the student and teacher level. On the left, you'll see the data available includes demographics, achievement and engagement, attendance, assessments, and behavior. And our principals, our data scientists, our coaches, and others are really thrilled about this data resource. So thank you, Dr. Abby, Mr. Wetter, and Dr. Ertl, for all of your hard work. During COVID, our Students in Compass, which is a district program for students with significant disabilities and complex medical needs, these students were not as included in the rhythm of school as they had previously been. Instead of resetting to pre-COVID inclusion, Glen Lake is swinging the pendulum completely from minimal inclusion to maximum inclusion. Glen Lake is creating a compassion, so Compass, I-O-N, compassion curriculum this year, and they call it the Compassion Invasion. Students in Compass, many of whom are wheelchair-bound, are everywhere at Glen Lake, regardless of age, including joining K-5 classes, including all of the specials. Students who are non-disabled are learning that they don't need to fear disabilities, that everyone is important and valuable, and that a peer doesn't have to use words in order to be a good friend. This merry-go-round bulletin board that you see on the slide was created and posted on the school's wall in December, and then Emma, a second grader, made a sign for Compass and taped it next to the Compass door as a surprise, and her words are one of our main learning objectives in Compassion Invasion, as well as a perfect addition to this bulletin board. When I was a sub for a day at Tanglin, it was great fun to witness the weekly tradition of kindergartners and fifth graders reading together for 30 minutes every single week. So the fifth graders and kindergartners, they head to the media center, they engage in a read aloud provided by an adult, and then they pair up and select a book for the fifth grader to read to the kindergartner. And so you can imagine that this 30-minute experience is packed with literacy, friendship, leadership development, behavior modeling, and much more. And I want to thank our Tanglin teachers for making this happen every week. The Hopkins Royal mascot may be receiving an updated look. This fall, HEF awarded a grant that will fund new mascot costumes for the district. Recent Hopkins Transition Plus graduate Mia Carter has been tapped to fabricate, no pun intended, the costumes. You'll see Mia on the right between her parents as she is the one wearing a costume that she handmade, and that was at our Transition Plus graduation. This will not be a rebranding of our district mascot. We will still be the Hopkins Royals, and the goal is to make sure our mascot costume aligns with our current Royals logo rather than a cookie-cutter lion off the mascot shelf. And leaders will work with students, student athletes, and other stakeholders to inform the design process so that scholars and scholar athletes are very happy with the result. On December 9 and 10, North and West students participated at this year's High-Tech Kids Lego Regional Finals competition. The competition involved a 30-second period where each team had to code their robot's behavior and let it drive itself. Then they have a 2-minute driver-controlled period where they have to move and pick up plastic discs from the ground and launch a paper airplane drone. Finally, the robot had to reach up and suspend itself from the frame over the field. Each team was narrowly edged out of the top 4 and won't be moving on to state, but their consistently performing robots were much improved across the season. These robot engineers were fierce competitors, kind teammates, and displayed great sportsmanship. Thank you, coaches, one of whom may or may not be a current board member spouse.
I was going to say that I recognize several people in those photos.
That's awesome. Finally, I wish I had a video capturing the fun that was had at the end of Friday before break at West Middle School. First, though, I had to get through subbing fourth block right before students were released for the game. Let's just say that I gave myself a gold star for what I think was successfully supervising seventh graders directly before the much anticipated staff versus student basketball game. 600 students converged into the multi-purpose space, cheered for their teachers and peers during 4 rounds of basketball, and safely exited to buses and parents nearly 1 hour later. I witnessed West staff literally breathing a sigh of relief at the end of that experience. It was a great end to the day. And in closing, I just wanted to recognize our new mayor in Golden Valley, so former board member Katie Peterson, current board member Brooke Roper, and I attended the swearing-in ceremony for Golden Valley's new mayor, Rosalind Harmon. The city council meeting house was packed with her family and friends and Golden Valley constituents. Outgoing Mayor Shep Harris was very gracious as he passed the baton after his 12-year tenure to the city's first person of color mayor. Congratulations, Mayor Harmon. We look forward to seeing you at our quarterly mayor, city manager, and school board and district leader meetings. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments for Dr. Mary Peary Reed?
Chair Westmoreland, do I need to be recognized?
It's
or-
fine. Go
Okay,
for it.
thank you, appreciate it. Thanks for that update. There was some really great stuff in there. I'm especially excited to see the Strong School Start 2024 meeting series launch. I just really commend you for getting out in front of that this far in advance of the next school year. That's just awesome to see. Just a couple questions. Those new dashboards, are those just for internal use, or will that be available that the public could look at?
Great question. Currently, they're internal use. However, Dr. Holm and a few others, Jolene Goldati, our Director of Communications and Marketing, and I'm not sure who else is on the team, but we have created public-facing dashboards. They are more static, less real-time live data than these internal data cloud dashboards. However, there are some learning and teaching dashboards that are currently on our website. There's a staffing dashboard, and a third, I actually can't remember what the theme is, and then we do have a plan to continue iterating the public-facing dashboards to increasingly reflect more live data and also more frequent updates.
Awesome, thank you.
Chair Westmoreland.
Yes.
I have a question for Dr. Mary P. Reed. Along the lines of the metrics, could you talk a little bit about the district leadership plan to kind of use the data and react to the data and make decisions off it? Could you talk a little bit about the plan for that?
Sure. The data on the data cloud?
Yeah, the data cloud. Yeah.
Absolutely. So a lot of different ways. I talked about the goal setting meetings, and so so we have quarterly meetings with our school leaders where data is reviewed, and then internally in our schools, our principals have SAT, student assistant teams. Is that? Thank you. So SAT, we always just call them SAT. SAT teams where student data is reviewed to identify students who need increased or different Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 support. Data is used to help counselors track seniors and who's on track for graduation. Data is used in a multitude of ways. Our instructional coaches are using data to look at literacy and math needs for students. Every school has a data specialist that partners with our district level instructional data scientists to identify the data that all schools should be reviewing. So there's a number of different ways, and maybe we can kind of spell all of those out for you in a communication to the board.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Excellent. Any other questions for Dr. Mary Perry Reed? Thank you. We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the approval of the agenda. And before I look for a motion to approve the agenda, we had just a logistical error that was made here. And so I'll let Vice Chair Andreessen describe that and then make an appropriate motion.
Okay, you'll have to help me with what the appropriate motion is.
Sure, no problem.
Our last meeting of the year 2023 was on December 12th, and in the minutes, which are part of this board packet, you will see that underneath the heading Policy Discussion, Unfinished Business, Mental Health Policy, that the board members continued the discussion on the mental health policy. Andreessen moved, Adams seconded, that the board approves the mental health policy in second read, and that was carried. What happened on the agenda for this meeting was that the mental health policy was put on the consent agenda in second read, which is our normal practice. However, this policy, because it was a new policy, was brought to the board in the agenda as unfinished business so that we could have discussions around it based on community feedback. And so it was a deviation from our normal policy procedure, which I think is where the confusion lay. And therefore, it has already been approved in second read by the full board, and therefore should not be appearing on the agenda for this meeting. So I would move that that tonight's agenda be revised to take off the section of unfinished business to review the mental health policy.
Thank you. I have a motion, and I'll second that motion, and then open it up for discussion, just to make sure that, that we understand what's going on.
It is a lot of second reads.
Yes. Okay, so we have a live motion on the table, so we'll vote to remove this agenda item, and then after that, we'll vote to approve the agenda for tonight. So we have a motion and a second to remove the policy discussion from unfinished business. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, I would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Chair Westmoreland?
Yes.
I would like to just pull something from the consent agenda for discussion.
Okay.
The minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I just noticed an error under the LAC.
Oh.
I am listed as a co-chair.
Oh.
And am not one.
Oh.
So just wanted to make that minor clerical error.
Okay.
Correction.
So,
It's under Legislative Action Coalition, co-chairs Steve Adams and Shannon Andreessen. I believe currently Jen Cameron serves as co-chair.
okay, so if we pull it, we need to add it to new business as a live agenda item to have the same conversation we just had. So another option would be to approve the consent calendar with the understanding that that would be administratively updated to reflect the correct co-chair. So I would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar with the update.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to our treasurer's report. So Director Steve Adams served as our treasurer through the end of 2023, and we certainly miss having him at the table. So he prepared this report. Typically, he would, or the person who serves as treasurer would give a description of the report. We will be electing our new treasurer here shortly. And so I would move that we approve the treasurer's report in the board packet.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's report. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll move into new business, which will be our board officers and committee assignments. So we held a public workshop prior to this meeting where we discussed interest in board officer positions and committee assignments. So now we'll formalize what we discussed at the workshop. So for each of the board officer positions, it requires a nomination, and then for the person who is nominated to accept the nomination, and then we do a voice vote on electing that person. During the workshop, we had one potential candidate express interest for each one of the officer positions. But if anyone has changed their mind, you can still, nominate yourself or ask to be nominated at this point. So we'll start with the chair position. And I would like to nominate Shannon Andreessen to serve as chair. Shannon, do you accept that nomination?
Thank you, I do.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of Shannon Andreessen serving as chair, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Congratulations, Chair Andreessen.
Thank you.
The gavel's right there. Our practice, just procedurally, our practice is to have the chair who prepared the agenda finish out the meeting, and then Chair Andreessen will take the gavel, which I've literally never used in 4 years, next meeting. So congratulations. So next, we will elect our vice chair. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Clerk Jason Ross.
Do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do accept the nomination.
Excellent. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of electing Jason Ross vice chair, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Congratulations, Vice Chair Ross. Next, we'll move on to treasurer. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Director Rachel Hartland.
Do you accept?
Yes, thank you, I do.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of electing Rachel Hartland treasurer, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, nay. Congratulations. Next, we'll move on to the position of clerk. Are there any nominations?
Yes, I would like to nominate Director Kai Thompson.
Do you accept the nomination?
I will accept the nomination. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of electing Kai Thompson clerk, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Congratulations. So during our workshop, I know, it's like somebody wanted to clap. That's what I thought I heard. Yes, yay, new officers. Maybe I'm the only one who wanted to clap. Maybe I thought I heard that. Okay. So congratulations and thank you. Thanks to the four of you for stepping up to serve in this capacity. We also discussed committee assignments, and community members who are interested in looking at the specific committee assignments can link to the document that's included in the workshop packet. Once these are formalized, these committee assignments will also appear on the school board page of the district website, so you can see which board members are serving on committees. So I would look for a motion to approve the committee assignments as listed on the document.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the committee assignments. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we'll move into our resolution calling for executive session, and I'll invite Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot to the table.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You do have a resolution in front of you this evening, Chair Westmoreland. I do say that in this meeting here, acknowledging that, and as well, that is for a closed session. Pursuant to that closed session, there are specific language items that need to be read that are stated in that resolution that need to be put into the record, and then the board can vote on closing the meeting at that point.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot before I read the resolution? It is hereby resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 270, Hopkins, Minnesota, meet in executive session to discuss the lawsuit involving the school district's handling of a student injury, that the meeting be held in person and commence immediately following adjournment of this regular meeting. Further, that it be noted that all board members, superintendent, and clerk were duly notified of the intention to call this executive session. So I would look for a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move into our board member reports. So this is a time during the meeting where board members can update the board and the community on events that they've attended, educational activities they've participated in, this type of thing. And so we typically just kind of go popcorn style, and anyone who feels like they want to start can do that. I won't be calling on people, in other words.
Well, I can start. So in my capacity as a parent, I was supporting and helping the district with developing a group called COBATS, the Caregivers of Black African Diaspora Scholars. And we host monthly meetings where we meet to provide a support system and an affinity group for parents to come in to have a safe space to speak and to engage deeper and intentionally with the district. And so we will be hosting a meeting this month, and an email will go out on behalf of, from Alex Fisher, either Maria or Dr. Stanley Brown. We're going to get that meeting out, and would love for folks to attend. I think it's really important as we continue to develop and move towards racial equity that this group is sustained, and we would love the support from parents and everyone who wants to be involved.
Thank you, and thanks for all the work you've done building that group.
Oh, thank you.
About how many people attend regularly at this point?
I would say closely about like 10 to 15, and it will be more once we begin to invite the external partners to the group, and we do have like committee assignments and everything that's also being developed. So I expect it to grow.
Excellent. Thank you.
I do have something from before. Is it okay if it's before? Okay, so I did attend the open house for the CNA, the Certified Nursing Assistant lab over at the high school, and I think it's exactly the kind of innovative and kind of forward-thinking things that I just love to see from a school. Dr. Mary Perry Reed mentioned that folks that start working early have better outcomes, and I think especially in the medical field, I think there's only going to be positive things there. So very excited to see what the school district can do for other industries as well. So that was great.
Excellent. Thank you.
Chair Westmoreland?
Yes.
Well, it feels like it's been a long time, I think, since we sat together, and so I was trying to remember exactly what I did in between the meetings and when, but one of the things that I did do was retake the school finance and management training from the MSBA, because I took it back when I was onboarding to the board, but that time was somewhat of a blur. So I did retake that and found it very helpful. Additionally, I will be attending with at least one other board colleague the upcoming MSBA conference trainings, which are happening this Thursday and Friday. And during those times, we get to learn from a variety of professionals who are either legal experts, possibly they're policy experts, otherwise they might be school board members or leaders from other districts that present to us on topics ranging from school security to AI and ChatGPT in schools to buildings and Robert's rules. So I'm excited to attend that. And right before break, I did attend the robotics competition that Dr. Mary Perry Reed mentioned, and that's very aligned with the district goals of adding kind of a career-focused pathway in tech and engineering and AI, because as we know, those fields will, or I guess not those fields, those topics will touch every field and will touch every job moving forward. And it's kind of, and the students, both of our Hopkins teams did narrowly get edged out of the top 4, as Dr. Mary Perry mentioned. However, the way that their program is set up, your 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teams can compete against all the way up through 12th graders. And so our middle school and pretty young middle school teams got edged out by a couple of high school teams. And so these are people who've been doing robotics for years, and our students are really impressive, and they're really dedicated to making very cool things happen with tech. The Legislative Action Coalition that I sit on with incoming chair Andreessen, and then also Steve Adams, is working on our legislator breakfast, which is an important annual event where we invite all of our elected state reps and senators into our buildings and talk about our priorities, which we voted on, which we heard about and voted on in the last meeting. We talk about those with the lawmakers. And that is on the 19th.
Excellent. Director Hartland, what time is that breakfast?
That breakfast is, you and I can talk about this more. As a LAC member, you are automatically invited. It is not a completely open breakfast. I believe it's 7:30 a.m. is the start time, and we will definitely chat about that.
Director Hartland, why is there only one kind of competition tier? That's weird that middle schoolers are competing against high schoolers.
The reason for that is pretty good, and we can continue to put this away from the table too, but the reason is because the budget for a FTC team, so that is what we consider in Hopkins a middle school level, and generally it's middle school level, but you need between $2,000 and $5,000 to run that team. Now, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe the budget for an FRC team, which is what we consider at Hopkins to be the high school level team, that budget is $10,000 to $30,000. And so it is equitable. It's considerably easier to have an FTC team. So if your district or group does not have the resources to have an FRC team, you still have a pathway to compete.
And we have both.
We have both. And we are continually adding more students to our program. So exactly what it looks like and how that breakdown, what it will look like in the future is, it's kind of constantly evolving. But it fell apart some during COVID, though the high school team continued in some capacity, and they are really excited about the enrollment and the performance of the students, considering they've only really been at it for 2 years now.
Chair Westmoreland?
Yes.
A couple things to report over the last month. On December 14th, I had the good fortune to attend the middle school orchestra concert under the direction of Mix E. Really put on a very nice concert with each of the grade level orchestras performing, and then it was a real treat to hear the chamber strings group, a really group of dedicated students. It was fun to see their hard work pay off. And then also had a great time going to the middle school choir concert on December 18th under the direction of Sam Hagan. We got to hear a combined grade level choir from West, and then the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade choirs from North. He also had the great idea to invite one of the high school choirs, the Royal Blues, to perform. And I thought that was such a smart idea because both those middle school students plus their parents could see, what a really exciting bit of music they could put on if they were to continue on with choir in high school. Also just really impressed, Sam Hagan, the middle school choir director, had been hired maybe a month after school had started, so he probably only had 2 months to put that together. And so to put together such a good performance, just really impressed by what he was able to accomplish there. Finally, just a shout out to the boys high school Nordic ski team. They won a lake conference ski meet yesterday. I saw on their social media that was probably the first time in like 10 years that they've done that. So pretty cool achievement there. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Other board member reports this evening?
Chairman Westmoreland, I forgot to say something. Is
Sure.
it okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I also will be attending the MSBA conference this week, and we'll be doing a lot of electric school bus advocacy there with my clean transportation team. So if anyone wants to come out to like see and support, please stop by because we will have tons of information about electric school buses. So.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so we are going to close the meeting at this point, and so we will invite members of the public and district staff to leave. And then after we're done with our closed session, I will formally adjourn. So thank you very much.
Chair Westmoreland, was there opportunity or were there just there was no interest in public comment?
Yep,
We had
I
no
didn't
cards.
receive
Okay.
any.
Thank you.
I know.
I bet he's glad, though.
Yeah.
Sit for an hour, so you